We are super grateful that Kat has joined us today for our very first in-person symposium since 2020. And we are grateful to be in this space with you. Kat, if you'd be willing to open us our symposium, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
I'm going to start off in a traditional way. I was offered tobacco. So I'm grateful for receiving that tobacco, this little tobacco time. At some point this will go into a sacred fire or be part of one of the traditional pipe ceremonies that my wife and I frequently do. But I'll start off by introducing myself. I am Anishnawbe, specifically from the group, the nation known as Cayuga, and that traces back to my father. If we go into what is now called upstate New York, there's a set of Finger Lakes there. Has anybody ever paddled those, by the way? Beautiful lakes. There's, what, 4 or 5 of them? In the old language, it talks about where the bear clawed the land. And if you look at a map and look down at it, it looks like big claw marks. If you're standing there, you can't see that at all. If you're sitting on one of the lakes or paddling on one of the lakes, the next one's 30 kilometers away or whatever, you can't tell that. So sometimes I joke that we had a little bit of technology we didn't actually share. We are people of the stars. A little bit more goes into that travel that my father, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, so that lake area, the upper part of that, now called sometimes swamp in English, but was also where the land transitioned into water. And that's almost a spiritual place. It's a beautiful place. We now call it wetlands, a little more nice way of saying it. On my mom's side, we travel back through her history quite a number of years back. We go to the southeast of England and the southwest of Germany. So those lands there are where her people came from. So I have 3 DNAs going around inside me: German, English, Indigenous. At one point we already would have been in conflict with each other, but I like to I can't dislike part of myself. So I almost have to say I'm part settler, but there's that word settler. What does that mean? Somebody who has come from somewhere looking for something. Maybe a traveler. I'll have to think of a different word perhaps. So those are the lands that I come from. My words go a little bit further and talk about Canoe, that big sun in the sky, and how grateful I am to be here to see that come up in the morning. Anybody watch sunrise? Anybody drive through sunrise? So we're grateful to be here, grateful to be part of that. So culturally, we didn't come from this place where we were falling down going, oh, great sun god in the sky. And I recognize some cultures, that was the way it was done. But it was more the gratitude for being there. The next few words talk about the big moon, that beautiful grandmother moon in the sky, and how important that is, how she affects the earth. She's always watching over us. That moon goes around us. We're spinning, the moon's going around us. We're all going around the sun. And in fact, our entire solar system is doing this lazy spiral through the galaxy, the southern part of our galaxy in the Sagittarian arm. It's a lot of movement. But the moon always has the same face towards Earth. So that's that metaphor there. And I use a lot of metaphors when I speak. The idea that it's always watching over us, always there. And I think if you go into your own belief system, you'll find the concept of something always watching over us. And to be grateful for that. It's a beautiful thing. And the last few words talk about the big lake to the south of us. Ontario, if you would. I've lived in this area for a long time. I was born in St. Catharines. So it's right down by the big waters, the big Thunder River there where the water goes over the edge. So it's a beautiful place. But how important that lake is, the water that's part of it, the water that's essential for life. That water, of course, is part of what we're talking about today. How critical that is and where that gift came from. And it kind of walks a little bit into the idea of us as paddlers, as people that like the water, that idea of floating out there, that in each and every time we dip a paddle, when I dip a paddle, when we dip a paddle into the water, that doesn't escape it. And we'll take time, my wife and I, a lot of the Indigenous people that I know, will take time to actually speak to their watercraft, because it's considered a living thing. So our connection back to that land doesn't just start with the water. It's the very fact that every single thing we need to actually exist comes when we talk about the land acknowledgement, when we greet the land that we're on, we acknowledge it. That's part of that. There's not a single thing we have, nothing in this room, everything comes from that land. And to be able to travel across it is a privilege, a wonderful privilege. It's beautiful. We go out and paddle. You know, when I got on the highway this morning, it wasn't the same as getting into my boat. It was, well, I have a really old Kia, so it kind of floats. And I was thinking that on the way here, wow, this handles like a boat. Maybe that's a compliment. But when we go out and collect the things we need, the very idea that we're going to put a canoe together, I saw some pictures of a birch bark canoe earlier. I thought about all the things that go into that. Has anybody built a canoe out of anything? It takes a while. It takes a lot of time. And we have technology now. We have all the special tools. We have the things that we need. We have saws and knives and Kevlar and carbon and Royalex. All those things we can use to make a canoe. But there was a time when we didn't have that. You recognize that, of course. We had to go out and collect the birch bark. If anybody's ever done that, there is a ceremony done in a special way of harvesting that birch bark and bringing it back to the camp. The very spruce roots that they sometimes use, they'll dig up the long ones that go, as conifers will, they have the long roots that travel along the ground. And by the way, that's one of the old things that says when you can find your roots, picture that as a metaphor, and you follow your roots back to their place of origin, you will find that tree of life, that great tree. That's one of the Haudenosaunee, you often see that symbol of a pine tree, a conifer. That's one of those reasons you see that. You have to take those roots out. If anybody's ever done it, it takes a while. They're really long. You soak them in some water in a stream for a while to get really soft, and you can split them 4 ways. So, picture that little circle, split long ways. I've only built a few canoes, so I'm not an expert at it, but I know it's a lot of work. And you have that rope, that long stringer that you can use to stitch that canoe together. You can poke the holes through the birch bark and attach it to the cedar that you bent and split by taking something to split cedar with. Anybody split cedar? There's a beautiful art form to it, isn't it? You can just guide whatever it is you're using to split and come up with these beautiful thin strips of cedar. And of course we know cedar does really well in the water. Anybody who's got a deck that's probably made of cedar. That birch bark itself, how did we learn from the environment that we lived in a long time ago? And I say we collectively. How did we learn from the environment we were in that birch bark would be a good thing? Now, if anybody's ever hiked through the bush and you see an old birch tree that's fallen over, and it's been there for a long time, the inside of it will completely rot away. Yet that bark will still be there. There was a time when it was used to store food in. You could wrap it up because it was actually, in a sense, antibacterial, and you could store food in it. The very thing you needed for life. So there's a lot of connections back and forth to life here. That could be stitched up into a little bucket. You could bring water in it. It was waterproof. If you want to start a fire, what do you use out bush? What do I use? Birch bark. You can pull strips of it apart. It could be pouring away rain, and birch bark will still light and burn quite well. It will deal with the water as well. It's waterproof. And yet here's something, if you stitch a bucket together really nice and fill it with water, a little birch bark bucket, you can put it over a fire and cook in it, and it won't burn. It's almost like it knows what you want it to do. Watch Survivor Man. I don't know if he's got that down pat yet. If Survivor Man is here, I did this once and the guy was here. So that birch bark has that importance to it. And some of the traditional scrolls, although it's said we didn't have a way of writing things, there are very ancient birch bark scrolls where things are cut into them or carved into them or burned into them. And there's a few symbols. Again, it's almost like a metaphoric way of writing things down. Anybody watch Star Trek? Yeah, wasn't there a Star Trek thing where they met a planet of aliens? They only talked in metaphors? Garnif Akkalag or something, and it meant this whole long sentence. The birch bark itself is almost a mnemonic, a memory thing where we can look at it and pull all these different teachings out of it. So we can take that spruce root, we can take gum top of one of the big pine trees, spruce gum, I think. Again, I'm guessing nobody's collected that, but I can remember with my elder going, we need spruce gum. And you wait till probably about a month from now when it's kind of warm during the daytime, cold at night, and at the top of those trees, about 3 stories up, just for, we'll keep it non-metric or non-standard measurements. If you climb up high enough, you'll find little globs of it. Each day it gets a little bigger and a little bigger. So you climb up there with a hatchet and chip at it when it's a little bit cold and it falls down, and you can melt all that down. And if you're not careful, you can come down the tree really quick. And stick. By the way, if you want to make your axe, your hatchet handle really nice, just rub a little bit of pine sap on it. You will never lose the grip again. It will always stick in your hand. And it's very waterproof. But that spruce, that gum, that canoe we're making, that cedar that we split, the birch bark that we use, we can stitch it all together. And you have something that's actually not a good thing. You have a canoe with a whole bunch of holes in it. So you take that spruce gum, you mix it up with some ashes from a sacred fire, you put in some bear fat. That used to be the old thing that we used. And again, that's difficult work. Sorry if you're vegetarian, but if you've ever tried to melt a bear down, it's an interesting thing to do. Nevertheless, you end up with this gummy, black, tarry looking mixture that is now replaced by silicone. It's a perfect sealant. So just by walking through the bush and looking at the things around us, we've found a way to put together a vessel we can travel anywhere. That's kind of wonderful. And the idea of traveling has a lot of little side things. Why do we travel? I would just ask you, why do you paddle?
Get the enjoyment out of it.
Enjoy it. Anybody else? Why do you paddle? Be on the water, close to the water. Adventure?
Explore back in my roots.
Learn. Be alone. It's a bit hard in this room. Curiosity. Curiosity is an interesting thing. You know, curiosity, by the way, is one of the easiest things to feed. When someone is curious, they are hungry for something. When we go out paddling, we enjoy ourselves. We're on the water, we travel, we explore. That was the whole concept of Star Trek, by the way. Let's go exploring. What did they bring back? Some information, some stories, some knowledge, some special good. The idea of sharing things. I always like to say that originally we didn't have a capitalist society here. We had a sharing society. You had some things that you made or constructed or that were beautiful. You took them with you. You met somebody else that had made things that you didn't have. You would share what you had with them. Okay. You would share those things. So part of what you're doing is going out and looking for that gift of knowledge, carrying it as a gift, and bringing it back. And anytime you've ever sat around a campfire at night and shared a few words, you've been sharing those gifts. Another important thing is exemplified by this picture. What do you think this is about? Now a memory.
Sharing knowledge.
Sharing knowledge. So that little guy is my son. He's probably 15 years, 11 months, 29 days, 2 hours old. But I want to take him out kayaking, much to Mom's dismay. I'm going to take our little 3-year-old out of this boat on Lake Ontario. He picked up immediately. He splashed in the water. He grabbed my beautiful handmade feathercraft paddle. I also have one of the original feathercraft boats, really skinny Greenland style ones. It's got a 21-inch to side. It's got about this much draft. If you sneeze, it rotates upside down. So that was a more stable craft. I let him hold the paddle, and he thought that was fantastic. But that will be embedded in him the rest of his life. will my not screams of pain, but I was holding the gunnels, and he had that paddle. Daddy, this is fun. And I thought, right across both fingers. And I went, yeah. He went, yeah. Okay, right across here at the kayak. So really, to wind this up, I could talk for days. That idea of we are mentors. Each and every one of us. Every time you pick up a paddle, every time you get on that water, every time you travel, you're collecting stories, you're collecting knowledge, you're feeding your own curiosity, you're doing whatever it is for your own well-being. One of the ancient things was, number one person to take care of is yourself. And when you're taking care of yourself, you are well enough to take care of the others around you. Whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, you have something to pass on. And you kind of owe it all to that first journey on the water. Those things that come from the woods itself. That heartbeat you listen to. That idea of, I can hear my heart pounding. I can feel it pounding. The excitement you get when you encounter something unusual. We took about 20 students up north to James Bay, paddling on the Abitibi in the Moose River. I still remember one of the inexperienced paddlers, these are high school kids. Her turning around, I was going, oh, we're approaching the rapids. She could hear a rumbling around the corner. And she said something I'll never forget. She was about to learn. Her words were, what are rapids? So I just wanted to share that little bit of philosophy with you. And the last thing too is take time before you go on the water to look at your boat. Everything is considered animate. In fact, I think in some of our languages there is no inanimate because everything has spirit. Everything comes from this land. Everything at some point is living, and it's all come together to carry you somewhere. Much like the original place that we come from. To thank your boat. We smudge our boats when we go out. We offer tobacco to that lake for the journey that we're about to take and for our safe return. The last thing I want to say is I'm grateful for the people who walked in front of me from the parking lot. Who was that? Somebody, I said, are you going to the canoe? Somebody. And it reminded me that I can go out bush up north when I used to go hunting. My pronoun is carnivore, by the way. I can leave my car, walk, come back 2 weeks later with a backpack, and I'd come this close to my car to the bush. In Toronto, I get on a subway. I got a 50% chance of making it south, only because you don't even